Hey, everybody, and welcome to the show. I am Liz, joining you as usual from Central Virginia and the unceded lands of the Monacan Nation. And I am so glad that you are here with me today. And so, before we dive in, I want to let you know my new book, Home to Her Walking the Transformative Path of the Sacred Feminine, is now available from Womancraft Publishing. I've been saying this a lot, like it's coming. And now I get to move into the, hey, it's here. It's so exciting. This book is my love letter of sorts to the sacred feminine. It includes a lot of historical research that I've done over the years, plus some of my personal experiences and insights I've learned from hosting this show. And so you can buy it anywhere that you buy books, right? Amazon, Barnes and Noble, et cetera, et cetera. But I've been encouraging people to purchase it from my publisher, Womancraft, because this is a small woman-owned business. And I still want to suggest that you do that. However, here's the thing. If you're reading the book and you like it, would you please consider leaving it a review on Amazon or on Goodreads? Much like reviews for this show, which I am always so grateful for those of you that are willing to take a moment to do that. It helps people find this information. And one of the reasons that I wrote this book was because I think when I started on this path, I was having a hard time finding information about the sacred feminine. So any way that we can help anyone who wants to learn find it, I think I'm all for that. So in the words of one of my mentors, if it would be in your joy to leave a review, I would be most grateful. And any other time, I'd just love to hear from you too. So if you want to reach out to me about the show or about the book at any point, please do. You can always find me on social media or just send me an email, liz@hometoher.com. And with that, let's get on with the show. So a friend introduced me to the work of my guest today. And once I spent some time reviewing all that she's created over the last several years, I knew right away that I wanted to have her join me on the show. And we'll get into all the amazing things she's doing. But what struck me immediately was how beautifully and powerfully she weaves together and dances with so many things that really came alive for me once I got on this journey with the sacred feminine. And that's things like music and storytelling, this deep love of nature and profound connection to all of life, divination and intuitive work, and art. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the story medicine. The story medicine transmits stories through the medium of her voice foremost, but also as a ceremonialist and craftswoman of spiritual art. The story medicine's work not only expresses the sacred, but also acts as healing and protective. Her stories drip the oceanic smell of woman, womb, and earth. Exuding a primal, deeply maternal and emotional quality, her work often communicates the life cycle with a special emphasis on death and rebirth. It is her magic to challenge the way the world sees and relates to what we call woman. She currently lives in Tacoma, Washington, the Puyallup territory of the Coast Salish people, and she is joining us from her home there today. Story Medicine, thank you so much for being here. I've so been looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, I'm so honored to be invited. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Liz.
Yeah. Well, listeners of the show will know I kind of always start in the same place, but I love to hear about people's spiritual backgrounds and their
Mhm.
journey, sort of where you began and how you got to where you are today. So I'd love to start there if that works for you.
Yes, I would love to. Um, well, I was a cradled Catholic, so I grew up in the church, and that's been a big part of my life. So, my mother, when they were still living in the Philippines, she was consecrated to the Immaculate Heart of the Mother when she was 9 years old.
Mm.
Within her school, there was a group of Marians, so she became a Marian at age 9 or so, and she tells me the stories of how she would sometimes not go out to play in recess time. She would stay with the nuns inside and pray with them or just talk with them.
Mm.
Or how she would, yeah, the churches there, they don't have walls because it's so hot.
Wow.
And so she said, I could also sit in the chapel, but see everyone play and hear everyone play. So you could sit or play,
Mm.
or both. And so she spent a lot of time, um, you know, uh, just in devotion. She always loved her faith very much. It was very deep for her from her childhood. And within her family, they prayed, the rosary every day, if not more. So I grew up praying the rosary every day. I grew up, loving my faith, wanting to be a saint, wanting to be a holy person. It's like, it's just innate when you grow up, that way. So I always held on to that love and that thread of the mother. And so it was through the Catholic Church, of course, that I came to know Mary, which evolved into a love of the earth and the goddess for me later in my life. And I didn't even know that that's what was happening when it was happening. Of course, it was like only later through some, deep work did she show herself to me. And it was a big coming home. And it
Mm.
all really, was very full circle at that point, and gave me a new, a new perspective of the church, a new perspective of everything, really. So that's the background, is that I come from cradled Catholic family, very Catholic family. And then that's on my maternal side. On my paternal side, my Russian grandmother, she was very different. It was, she really instilled in me that, the ocean was the church, the ocean was the place of worship, the ocean was where we came back to remember how loved we were.
Mm.
And that was her way, and that's what's been passed on to me and reverberates through my work, through my connection with the seaweed, being this path home. And so her way was, it's your own way, figure out what it is. I
Mm.
was just so blessed to have such a good example, and to have it passed down to me, and then to be able to continue the work that she started. So I consider myself very, very privileged to have been raised by such spiritually powerful women. I mean, on my mother's side as well, my Filipino grandmother, she had 10 children. She had a very full life, but when she came to this country, it was very important to her to go to school. So in the age of 60 years old, Liz, in the age of 60, she completed her Master's of Divinity at
Wow.
Seattle University. So I'm not joking when I say I've been raised by really spiritually powerful women who have,
Mm.
been committed to love.
Yes.
So, my mother's the eldest, the matriarch in the family, then me. Then I also have the oldest daughter. So, I carry a lot in my role, in all my roles.
Mm.
But that's a bit of the story.
Mm. So beautiful. I'm just thinking what a great gift to be raised by powerful spiritual women who it sounds like are um, even your description of your mother and her experience with Mary in the Catholic Church. There's so many people that I feel like I've talked to over the years who felt like, or maybe they found well, I guess they felt a little coerced into their faith, perhaps, or that
Mhm,
was the only path. And
mhm,
I hear you saying something different, like, and
mhm,
so what a beautiful thing to have in your family and to be
mhm,
gifted and to see that as a child and growing up.
mhm. Well, I mean, I think that's part of our work, is to continue to evolve spirituality over
Yeah.
time, and what is really uh, possible now, what will be
Hmm.
possible in the future, you know.
Hmm. Yes. Well, and I want to ask you, so you said, you kind of started off with this devotion to Mary or knowing Mary, and then that got she became, bigger, like this concept of the nature. And so I wonder if you could speak more about that. Because usually the next kind of question that I ask people is how did the sacred feminine become part of your life? And so I think that's kind of where I'm going
Yeah.
with that. Yeah.
So, so when I really started making more time for my art, I was, I mean, just entranced by woman, just woman. And so everything was coming out as that. Um, and for me, the connection to woman, to mother is the kelp, right? As the womb, the seaweed as the womb, the ocean, all those other threads, right? I've talked about are in there. So it wasn't until I was working on my the second tarot deck in my series, the Story Medicine Tarot series. I was working on Animal Woman, and there was so much shape shifting power coming forward and being made known to me. And I'm not sure if I had completed it or not yet, but I was in trance. I was in trance. I was in ceremony, and and uh, and there was the mother, and her face was changing. And not all the faces were pleasant, I should say. Some were very, very frightening. Um, but I wasn't scared. And if she was changing, again, mind you, this comes through Animal Woman and the shape shifting powers that were being made known to me. So her face is changing. And I'm watching her, and she's cloaked in a big black cloak, all these folds, and she's just enormous. And I'm so small at that point. I'm so tiny, and I'm watching, and her face is changing, and I don't even understand what's happening, but I'm just seeing it. And then she became Mary, and I just cried, and I just cried, and I just cried. And she said, "It's always been me. It's always been me." And that was the full circle when I really understood. Um, okay, like I've never, because I think what happens when we grow up in the church, and then we take space, or we step away, or we question, is that, oftentimes we feel like we've done something wrong, or we feel like we're how do you say it, like ungrateful, or we're betraying a heritage,
Yes.
that has really been not necessarily bad, right? But just whatever it was. And so that was a huge landing in my body, and a huge landing in the earth, and the rest of my work moving forward. I really nothing felt separate anymore. And from that moment on, I could connect with my mother again in a spiritual way that I couldn't before. It was just like everything came back together, and I knew how to speak to it. I knew how to move with it. So yeah, that was the big moment. That was the big moment. And like I said, I was working with woman, I was working with womb, I was working with, but I just, a lot of times we can read about something, or somebody could share about something, but it's those very deep personal spiritual experiences when you're in ceremony or you're in trance that it finally lands and integrates in the body, and you say, okay, and you're forever changed from that.
Yes.
So that's what that particular time was.
So beautiful. So beautiful. It's interesting too. I've, been on my own journey and now feel that I have, it's almost like I went really broad, with my seeking, because I felt like all of that I had been given from, the Christian church was too narrow. Like it's just,
Mhm.
well, I was raised Protestant, so there was no divine feminine in that. Um, so I went really, like to, sacred feminine as void,
Mm,
just like
yeah.
the all encompassing
Mhm.
all, and stayed there for, I mean, well, I'm still there, but um but then sort of as the years progressed, Mary kind of showed up as one of her many faces. I was thinking as you were saying, changing of like, Octavia Butler, and the God has changed. And I think Starhawk has written the same thing. Change, the goddess has changed, touches, changes.
Mhm.
But yeah, for me, Mary has it, she kind of showed up as a way to keep the connection with my own ancestral people, because I was really struggling with that. Like, how on earth do I have a connection with my ancestors when what I believe feels so foreign, to what I think their experience was? And she's been the connection. And so I've started praying the rosary as well. I've been doing that for the last few years, but a divine feminine inspired one that is
Yes.
just so much bigger to me than
Oh, yes. Of
you know, any kind of box we might try to put her in with a religion.
course. I
Yeah.
recreated a rosary. It's on my website. I'll send it to
I
you. I'll
saw it.
send it to you too. Yeah.
It looks stunning, but can you tell people about it? Because I
Yeah.
was reading the
Well,
description. It sounded
I'll
amazing.
tell you the story of it. I'll tell you the story of it because it's really kind of cool. So, I was actually at our beach house, our family beach house, and I was there on retreat doing some creative work. And I at that particular year, uh, so I walk with a different woman every year. So that particular year, I was walking with Guadalupe.
Mm.
And so I went there, and I thought I was going to be working on these things, but then I started working on something else. And I was like, what am I even working on? But whatever, let it flow. So it came out, and it was that rosary. And I only later found out that I channeled it on her feast day, the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe. So I
Oh.
really felt like that was part of our work together.
Mhm.
And in so many ways, she's close to me with that green cloak and the connection that I have to the Kelp Mother and the Green Woman. So
Mhm.
anyway, it's just a part of my joy to share that, that practice of the Rosary, because I know the miracles that come from that
Oh
practice.
yeah. Oh
So,
yeah.
uh, you know,
Absolutely.
and then when I did that, it was amazing to see how many women came forward and said, I made my own rosary. I made my own rosary. And all the prayers that have been, that are being recreated, that makes me very
Yes.
excited.
Yes, 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 yes. It is a beautiful thing too, right? And you already alluded to this. Like, our spirituality should be evolving, and that's the dance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? To weave, like, to not. I mean, at least for me, to not throw away the wisdom or even the perspectives of my ancestors. Like, I want to hold that, and also recognize that we're in a really different time. And how can these prayers and these practices evolve to support, where we are, and where we need to heal? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear from you about, you've already mentioned your tarot.
Mhm.
So I wonder if you could walk us through. I know that you've got a new deck out, but as I understand, it's also part of like a four deck kind of in one,
Mhm.
um, series, right? So can you tell us
Sure.
about that? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in 2018, I was doing quite a bit of these readings. I called them story readings. I read over 100 stories that year. I had a dream. The tarot came to me and said, work with me.
Mhm.
Okay. So I did 100, I told over 100 stories that year. It was really wonderful. And, but during that time, I didn't really feel very connected to a lot of the imagery that was available to me. And uh, I thought, okay, well, I'll create it. And I had seen another sister recently creating cards, and I thought I could do that. I think I can do that. Let me try and do that. So I set out, and then about I think it's 2/3 or so into the creation, or maybe it was uh yeah, somewhere in the creation, I had a huge breakdown, Liz. I was just like, what is this? Who is gonna need to see this? This artwork is not consistent. This looks so amateur. Just a lot of thoughts, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of worry. So I had to sit in that void for quite some time. And from there, I decided to two things. I decided to accept where I was artistically, emotionally, spiritually, and then also to embrace my desire to grow and evolve. And so I said, okay, I will take this journey 3 more times. So the vision was to take the creation journey, this journey I call the journey into woman. I'm going to take it 3 more times. So each deck would be dedicated to a sacred direction on the wheel, woman as the wheel. That's what the journey into woman is, woman as the wheel. And so the vision was that it would be the first mix and match tarot deck available in the world, all with the same fire mosaic back. So that's what made it unique, was that you could pick from any of the work that I've done and build your own, weave your own tarot deck.
Wow.
And so that's the journey I've been on since 2018, and that I just completed here with Seaweed Sisters when I released it, with the last new moon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was looking at some of your artwork. Well, and yes, I want to talk about your documentary too, but I was looking at some of your artwork online. It's just so stunning. I wonder if you could talk to us too. You mentioned it already, kelp, your relationship with kelp and sort of from the womb of, I guess, Ocean Mother. But could you talk more about that and how you work with it and how you see it?
Well, for me, the connection has always been there. I believe that I am from eternity. I am from forever. So it's as ancient as it ever could be. It's very, very deep. But in this lifetime, my very first memories, I remember, this is my paternal grandmother. I remember my little hand in her big hand and what her skin felt like. And I remember walking up and down the shores with her. I remember the sound of the waves, the sound of the seagulls, the caw of the seagulls, and the salt and the cold water and the cold sand underneath my feet. And I remember gathering the kelp and playing with the kelp. And my paternal grandparents were very good about taking each of they took their own children there, and my grandmother retreated there. That was her once per year self retreat. And at that time in the 1950s, it was a big deal to go leave your family and do something for yourself.
Yeah.
So that was very bold of her. But she always did that. She always took her children, raised her children out there. And then when she had us, the grandchildren, she would take one of us at a time, and we would go out there, and she would have that one-on-one with us. But it was different though with me and her, because we were each other's favorite. And she loved me like the ocean. And that love really taught me about the mystery of life. That's been the most prominent thread for me. So there was a time where I asked her later, as I got older, I said, Mima, someday, are you gonna die? I asked her as an older child. And she said, well, yes. She said, someday I'm going to go home.
Mm.
And that has just always stuck with me. And it's a big part of my journey is, what is home? Where is home? What is the path home?
Mm.
So, that's also something that reverberates through my work is the homecoming. And it's not it's a cyclical journey. It's a continued journey. It's not like I'm on my way home once I get there, right? It's a continued journey, the never-ending journey, the forever journey of coming home. So, the connection to the seaweed, like I said before, the seaweed for me is the path home. It's the path home. Her hair is the path home. Her bulb is the womb. And her green lives within me. It just lives within me. I can't explain it any other way. I'm just know that I am here on a soul level to share it. I know that with everything in me. And I even if I try to go out and explore other things, it just comes back around, to the kelp. So that has happened many, many times. And so now I just live here.
Yes. And you said come back around made me think of the journey home. I mean, I think of it as a spiral, right? It's not, it's just, and it just keeps going and going and going. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then with your seaweed sisters, Dak, tell me how that deep connection to the kelp, kind of pulled through that creation and the final product.
It couldn't not, you know what I mean? It's just, yeah, it's just in there. It's each card is a ceremony inside Kelp Mama. The women are green, they have this long hair that never ends. It just reaches into forever. They have these tears that cry into forever, this milk that flows into forever, this blood that flows into forever. So it's I think just a more honed in expression of what I uh, uh, have been trying to do. And that's why this journey into woman is so special to me, is because each time that we we commit to saying, okay, I'm going to come home to myself. Although it's a continued journey, I do feel that there's a deepening every time. I do feel that there is a sinking in, a greater knowing. I do feel that there is expanse. So yeah, this deck is really just the the evolution of this journey that I started in 2018.
Yes, and then you've made a documentary about it too. Is that right?
Yeah. I did. Yeah. So that was kind of just to do something to complete it, and also to really share. I really wanted to share how deep and how emotional it is to create something in this world. How vulnerable that is, and to share that process. And so that's new for me. And it was very vulnerable. I put in a lot of parts that I would rather just have cut out that I didn't like. And so yeah, so far so good. We have lots of love pouring in, a lot of a lot of resonance. And yeah.
Yes, and I will be sure to put a link to it in the show notes too, so people can check it out for sure. So there's many things I want to talk to you about, but the other thing that's coming up right in this moment, well, actually, no, I don't want to move away from the tarot just yet. I want to ask about, so I referenced in my intro, this divination and working with our intuitive wisdom. That was something that definitely came online for me when I as part of my own journey with sacred feminine
Mhm.
knowing and wisdom. And so I'm curious for you if you, I don't want to. I'm not trying to box in tarot or divination specifically, but I'm wondering if for you that if you see or feel a specific connection to tarot and what it means for you to be woman and embrace
Mm, mm.
woman.
Well, okay. So when I first started this journey, and when I first started story medicine tarot, I didn't. This is how the journey into woman came about. Okay, so I started this tarot deck. I was like, all right, I'm gonna try and do this. And when I was so the way I created it, the very first one was I created the swords. Okay, and then I created the cups, I created the pentacles, and then I created the wands. And the majors in that first deck were just sprinkled throughout as themes in the stories. So anyway, I was in the cups. I was walking through the forest. I was channeling story, and I just I was like, oh my gosh, I'm inside of woman right now.
Mm.
And so that's when the wheel came forward for me in my work. So it was dropping in through the opening of the head, right, into the swords, which was the crown, the third eye, the throat, the mind. All right. And so many other things, right? And archetypes with that, and then dropping down into the cups, into the heart space, right? And then dropping further down into the pentacles, right? Into the spine and the core, the center, and then dropping all the way down into the wands and the womb. And from there, the fire all the way back up, and we start again.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the path that came forward, and I've just been on it ever since. And so with those points, right, there are the directions, and like I said, many other correlations. And so for me, the north is the mind, the south is the heart, okay, the west is the spine and the center, and then the east is the womb. And anyone who there's many different wheels, so that's the
Yes.
wheel that I was on and the way that I was traveling it. And so I don't remember your question now, but that's where I was going. So what was the question?
I think you're answering it. The question was sort of this connection between tarot and your understanding of
Yeah,
woman,
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I have 4 kids. Sometimes it's just like I don't remember what I'm saying. So
I understand. Happens all the time. I get it.
what are we talking about? Yeah. So thank you. So yeah, so what I'm saying is that through the tarot, I came into a woman's body. And so I think that the tarot has been, this beautiful set of bones in which the stories are the flesh and the blood, and in which we get to create the story of our life. It's really been like that for me.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh, I love that. And I actually realized as you were talking, I'm like, would you mind giving us maybe just for, I don't know if I have any listeners that don't know what tarot is. But if you don't, I want to make sure you're not lost. So could you give us like kind of the 30-second overview of what are we talking about here?
Well, yeah, I mean, the tarot, right, has 78 cards. There's 4 different suits. And yeah, right, they're the swords, the cups, the pentacles, and the wands. They each are symbolic for different aspects of life. And then there's of course, the face cards, that correlate with those suits. And so in the story medicine tarot, right? Okay, well, I'm giving introductions, so I don't want to confuse anyone. But those 4 archetypes, yeah, those 4 archetypes, right? The page, which in story medicine tarot we say the daughter. Yeah. The knight, which in story medicine tarot we call the young mother. Okay. And then there's the queen, which in story medicine tarot we call the goddess mother. And then there is the king. And in story medicine tarot, we call this the grandmother, so fourfold goddess.
Mm-hmm.
So there's those face cards within the suits, and then there's the major arcana, which they are themes, the journey of life.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a short, short.
Yes. No, that's great. And it's been, and tarot as a tool, has been around. I don't like the word tool, but you know what I'm trying to say. Has been around for what, like 1,000 years or so, right? I mean, it's got a long and beautiful history.
Mhm.
I'll I'll see if I can throw something in the show notes if those of you are,
Cool.
looking for just kind of background on tarot in general, so that we, all are on the same page, so to speak. Well, and I wanted to ask you as well about this idea of personal myth.
Mhm.
I know that that's something that's important to you, and I'm wondering what that means to you. Like, when I hear personal myth, I kind of think of like archetypal work and wisdom, but I don't know. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, the teaching that I carry is, from my teacher, Jean Tagaban, who says our life is a story. Our
Mm,
life is a story. So that's really it. I mean,
mm,
yeah, it's full of archetypes and all kinds of things, for
mm,
sure, but it's what we're creating. So within my own exploration of that teaching, and yeah, it's the idea that, yeah, every moment is a creation story. We're in continuous creation. So can we be aware of that? Can we remember that, right, you and I, we're creating this, whatever we're doing right now, it's being created. So
mhm,
staying in the power, that sacred power of, I am always creating with my thoughts, my feelings, my words. So there's a lot of power in that, and that's really what I share, and what I live for, is just that continuous creation story. And that goes back within my own family too. My grandmother, my mom always talks about how in the Philippines, my grandmother would always invite the kids, come on, come on, come on, come on the bed, come on the bed, come on everybody. And she's like, okay, where do we want to go? Where do we want to go? Okay, who do we see? Who do we see now? Who do we see?
mm.
So, she was always evoking the storyteller,
Oh,
evoking our sacred imagination. So I really grew up, you know, I grew up with that. My grandmother took me to my first storytelling circle around 10 years old. My mother, even now, it's like, everything has a story. Everything has a story. It's all about the
mm,
stories. It's
mhm,
all about the stories, which are, we could also say, energies, and they're
mm,
protective, they're sacred. It's like when if you ever are around older people, you might notice they tell the same things over and over, the same stories over and over. That's their sacred memory. That's what keeps
mm,
them well. That's what they
mm,
want to remember. And
mm,
so that kind of repetition, the power of that, right? It's a practice. It's a personal practice. So what are you telling? What are we telling over and over? Yeah, from wherever we are. What is that?
mm. Oh, yeah. This brings up so many things for me. So many thoughts. One is um how we've outsourced so many things, and so,
That's right.
like we've put it in the hands of Hollywood, or like, or we, and just which, that's not bad. I think we learn things from those stories too, but it's almost like it gets put in the hands of experts, or somebody, who's going to turn it into a career, or something that's totally intertwined with capitalism, when it doesn't have to be. And like what we've lost by not kind of seeing that in our own lives, in our own selves.
Well, I think it's Libra. Oh my gosh, I feel so bad. I can't remember. But anyway, the quote is, you can Google the quote and figure out who says this. She says, yeah, story is the most powerful force on earth. And I really believe that. And so, yeah, of course, there's an abuse of power with story. Of course, this is, right now, story is mostly used to sell things to people. That's the way that it's
Yes.
used. So there's a huge uh, reclaiming of power, when we say, oh, wait, this is my story. I'm the main character and I am sovereign unto myself.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
we're all creators, we're all storytellers,
Yes.
whether people believe it or not, it's true.
Yes. You're also making me think about the potential malleability, I guess, of other stories that we've told. Like I'm going to have the writer Sophie Strand on a future episode, and for those that aren't familiar with her work, she's got a book coming out where she's reimagining a lot of divine masculine myths, and
Yes.
it's been so refreshing to see. And she's intentionally reimagining these, like she's
Oh,
taking
yes.
these stories that meant one thing and digging into them and saying, what if we focus on this piece instead, or what's actually going on here, because there's always layers as well. And so um it makes me think of like those stories, the myths that we've told in our past too, that those are changeable and they get to um be updated and evolve with us as well.
It's I don't remember her full name. Obviously, I'm not good with names. It's Rochelle Garcia, I think, Innate Traditions, right? She says we live in this time of repair. We live in this time of repair, and so hearing you, talking about this woman's work that she's doing, I really do think that that's what our generation is in the midst of, is we're untangling a lot. We're untangling a lot. And then we're considering how can we reweave this into something, uh, yeah, something new, something healing, something nourishing, right? Something relevant. And and so that our children can take the threads into forever, right? And weave in, something, weave onward, right? With a
Mhm.
with a clearer heart, with more possibility, right? So I think that we're in this time of untangling a lot, and then considering, okay, how can we reweave this?
Oh yes, I feel that so strongly, even down to the imagery that you're working with the knots, and I it's
Yes.
it's a visceral presence in my body, and it's a visual thing
Yes.
that I see and sense too, very much
Yes.
so. The other thing I was thinking of as you're talking about this is now I want to tell a little story about a story. We
All the stories.
we did our family Day of the Dead celebration. We always do it the day
Oh,
after
lovely.
Halloween. It's just easy for the kids. My kids are 8 and 11, and this year for me it was really I had a tremendous amount of sadness come up, and nobody has passed recently. It was not any different in that way, but I think that I felt the presence of my ancestors so strongly, and there was just a deep sadness of, that I can no longer be with these people who have meant the world to me, and their love got me here. And so, but what was really neat is we were sitting around the table, and my 8-year-old son is like, let's tell a story in the round about our ancestors.
Mm.
And it starts with a knock on the door, and they start to arrive, one by one. And each of us, took a piece of it and talked about what they would do. And, my how my husband said that, ugh, God, I'm going to cry at this, but his mother, gave me a locket that she had been wearing in the picture on our altar. And my
Mm.
father took my husband out in the backyard and taught him how to chop wood. And, we were just imagining these things, and it suddenly, well, first I didn't feel sad anymore. I felt just elated, just how beautiful. And it also really underscored to me this storytelling is innate. My 8-year-old just came up with this. Like, it took no prompting. It was just right there. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I'm so happy for you guys. That sounds so wonderful.
It was lovely. It involved, by the end, we've got a picture of my let's see, like third, fourth, fifth grandmother, I think, back on our family
Yeah,
altar. And it involved her arriving in a spaceship. It was pretty, it was a pretty spectacular.
amazing, amazing.
Yeah, it
I
was
can't
pretty
even
fun.
imagine how happy your ancestors were.
Oh gosh, I hope so. Yeah, I mean, it was really, really, it was really special. So then it got me thinking though, just about like reclaiming this whole idea of storytelling and how do we do that? I'd love to hear from you. I mean, clearly this is your life's work, right? Or a
Mhm.
huge part of it.
Yeah.
How do you see us sort of bringing this forward into our lives
Well,
more?
there's a little piece of the documentary where I share how my son was offering me these marbles, and he was like, "Would you like a memory marble?" And so he says, "You can put a good memory in it and then remember it." And so I think to be sovereign unto ourselves is to remember that we are the water and that we are full of memory. And so what do we want to remember?
Mm,
Right? So, like, thinking about that. What do we need? What do we want to remember and to continue calling on those stories, to continue returning to the fire and those stories? Because
mhm.
when we do that, um, it grows in us. There's this song that I always sing. The songs are the seeds grow in me, remember in me, a garden, a chorus of life. So let the stories grow in you. Let them grow in you. Give them a place, a home within you, within your body to grow. And then from there, the stories, they continue. Like I said, we're in a continuous creation story. I think what makes me feel inspired about living in the present is that it won't happen again.
Yeah.
That's why I say it only happens once. It only happens once.
Mhm.
You could try to recreate it, but it only happens once. So in that way, it is sacred. Every moment is ceremony. Your life is a ceremony. Your life is a prayer. Everything is sacred. And you're always telling a story. Like, that what you just told me, that's something you're gonna remember. That's something you're gonna say, this one Day of the Dead, we went around and we told stories, and who knows what that becomes. Maybe that unfolds. You do it again next year. Maybe you don't. But it's
Mhm.
being open to the power of story, and what could be possible, what could happen, what magic could possibly happen. you
Mhm.
know so I think we have to, remember, uh that we hold so much sacred power,
Mhm.
you know
Yeah.
and so what do we want to give ourselves to?
Mm. I'm thinking of like, well, I mean, the words "the never ending story" came to mind,
Of course.
and now I have that song in my head. But that feels the way you're talking about this feels really different to me than, well, so I've done archetypal work before and where you're not staying in one archetype, like my training was like a priestess initiation program where we spent one full moon in each of these 13 archetypes, divine feminine
Mhm.
archetypes. But one of the things that's felt a little challenging to me with archetypal work, or it can be, and I think this is just my orientation, it's like, okay, I'm going to be this one thing and I'm not like,
Yeah.
I'm not, and nobody is, right? Like whenever
Right.
we try to put ourselves in a box, I mean, I think of the ocean. I actually wrote about this in my book, the ocean, to try pouring an ocean into a box and see how that's going to work
Yeah.
for you. Right.
Yeah.
So I love the way you're talking about storytelling. And I think of this never ending story is that we are constantly now bring back in your shape-shifting woman, you know, shifting and shaping, and the stories are taking us in different directions. Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say this, we need new goddesses.
Mm.
I mean, watch the documentary.
Yes. Okay.
But we
I watched
need
part of it, but
to,
I'm not done yet.
yeah.
Yes. Say more,
I mean,
please.
to everyone, watch it.
Yeah.
There's kind of a surprise at the end where I say I'm in devotion to this goddess.
Mm.
Okay. But I just want to say we need new goddesses. We need new archetypes. Rest, dream, take care of yourself. We need new stories and visions, and we need new goddesses. Yes, we have many to call on, right? Many ancestresses that we can call on. But we, and not even like we need new goddesses. Step into the goddess you already are. You know, come forward.
Mm-hmm.
Come forward, create that story.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what does it look like? What does it look like? You
Mm-hmm.
as a living goddess. What could that possibly look like? I mean, I don't know. That's what I'm exploring right now.
Yeah.
But
I
I
was going to
know that we
say,
need it. I know that we
yes.
need it. I know that it's time.
Yeah. There's something there to me too about multiplicity. You know, like there's okay, let's see if I can sometimes I have thoughts and like they don't really make it out of my mouth all that well.
All the time. I'm like, what am I saying?
I'm like, this feels so clear up here. Can I get it out of my mouth? Well, I guess I'm thinking, and I keep this image of the box keeps coming back, and like, you know, our need for labels and how they
Right.
help us make sense of a world that is so incredibly massive. And you know, what I think of as the divine, we could call it energy, you can call it whatever you want, but it is so large that to try and understand it from our little human being place, we need these labels and boxes, right? And yet those things can become constraining to us. So when you talked about we need new goddesses and step into the living goddess that you already are, I guess what I was thinking of there too is this idea of multiplicity, you know, and not like maybe learning from those categories and places in which our ancestors have taught us, and these archetypes that have existed throughout time, learning from them, but also not feeling limited by them, because
Yes.
I guess the story of humanity is hopefully is never ending, right? Like if we make it out of
And I think these are all prisms, you know, of the same rainbow light.
yes.
So there's also that part of it where it's like, yeah, it's this one thing, but it's connected to the whole. So
Yes.
remembering that, yeah, that we're not separate from anything. And that's our, I think on a spiritual level, that is the biggest wound that we all have right now, that we are trying to heal as humanity, is this wound of separateness. I just really, you know, so as much as we can remember that it all belongs, we're not separate from anything. Yes, there's duality, yes, there's polarity, but it all belongs, you know. And it's okay. We can live in our wholeness. It's safe to live in our wholeness.
Yes. Oh, you're just all of a sudden, I'm getting all these ideas. I'm like, oh, someone needs to tackle the story of creation. Someone needs to retell that story, you know?
Well, that's what I mean, though. It's every time. It's every second. The
Yes.
story of creation is really every second.
Yes. But I'm thinking back to those old stories too that we have, right? Of like the Christian creation myth, you know, and the exile. You're talking about the story of separateness and the exile from the garden and how we were thrust out, and what a beautiful and powerful and brave thing it would be to come at that story from a different angle. Yeah.
It's all yours, Liz.
I know. I'm now getting some ideas.
A new project.
I know. Kidding. Like, yes, that would be so much fun. And I just read this most beautiful poem, and I'll put it in the show notes, the other day, where it was a story. It was the perspective of the sirens, the Greek sirens, you know, whose songs would lure men to crash into the rocks. And so from the perspective of the sirens, they're just singing. They're not there to destroy you. They are enjoying the beauty of their voices. And so it was really neat to see. Yeah. are there stories? Let's see if I'm going to ask this right. Are there stories that are bubbling up for you now, or either like,
Hmm.
where's your personal story at? Or are there larger
Yeah,
stories that are
where is
calling to
my
you?
personal story at? That's a great question. Well, right now I'm in this space of just having finished this big project like you.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm in a very spacious place right now. I've just emptied out. I've just, emptied out, poured out a lot. And I notice how much I love, um, yeah, just this quiet, just this quiet and this stillness of there being nothing to create, whilst also burning to create the next thing. I have this huge canvas behind me,
Mhm.
just I went out and got it not that long after I released the project, so just holding that polarity for myself right now, that duality of, wow, it feels so good to be uh empty in this vessel right now, not having to give myself to anything, just being able to just be in this hollow vessel, not having to do, you know, not having to push or just to be
Mhm.
in this body with just all this quiet. It's yeah, and then yeah, to also, it's like, ooh, you know, I can also feel, I can feel um, the fire in me,
Mhm.
you know. So that's where I am right now. But
That feels very seasonal too, the kind of the
mm,
quiet, the rest as we head into this, well, at least for those of
mm,
us in the Northern Hemisphere who are listening, as we head into, so we're recording this in early November 2022. So it feels like, yeah, that feels in
and that's
alignment with where we're
generally
headed.
that's generally the way that I'm working now, is that I'm creating most of, the year, and then I'm sharing when it's storytelling season. And this season, that's when I put out work
Mm.
to, be warming for the upcoming season. So
Oh, I love
that is my
that.
cycle.
Oh, I love that. That's really beautiful. Do you find that your creative inspiration, I know that you mentioned that tarot came to you and your dreams. Do you find
Yeah.
that it comes to you in your dreams, or is it a combination of places through ceremony, or
Oh yeah.
how does it come to you?
I've always been a big dreamer, so you know, yes, but yes, also through ceremony, and really, everything is, at this point, feeding my creativity. This conversation we're having now, there's so much beauty here, there's so much inspiration here, it's everything, it's all of life continues to inspire me, even just, the sun coming up another day. It's
Yeah.
like, oh wow. you know so really, truly, everything, life inspires me. I guess that's one of the gifts I came in with, is I am a lover of life. I want to make love to this life. It's very
Mhm.
natural for me.
Mhm. I love that. I was just thinking as you say this, as you're saying this too, I was just telling a friend who also hosts a podcast that we were marveling at how wonderful it is that we get to be in conversation with so many amazing people.
Mm.
And I'm like, yes, I love humans. I love humans so much. That's a core part of my story after every one of these, just the
Mm.
beauty of people and the ways in which they're
Mm.
expressing themselves.
Wow.
It's such an amazing thing and such a fantastic gift for me to get to witness it and be part of it. So I'm so grateful to
Wow.
you for sharing all your gifts.
Mm. Mm.
Um, so tell us, you have you have a program coming up, don't you? Something,
Yeah, let me talk about it because it's not
yeah.
really a program. It's more of a container, a sacred container. So yeah,
Mm.
this journey into woman work, this mentorship work was folding alongside the creation of story medicine tarot. So when I first started the tarot deck, right, like I said, it evolved. I also had started mentorship that year, and it was supposed to just be a year-long walk. And as the tarot deck unfolded, the mentorship, also unfolded into 4 years. Like,
Mhm.
as the deck unfolded into 4 decks, the journey unfolded. Okay, 4 years of self-study each year. You're dedicating yourself to be an apprentice of that sacred direction. And
Yes.
in 4 years you're completing a giant wheel. Of course there's journeys within the journey, right? But that's the container. Although people can work with me for a shorter time if they want. Some people want to only work together for, they know coming in they only want to work together for 1 year or 2 years. That's okay too. Some people are more connected to the intention of the container than others, and that's okay. But really it is just an open space. Of course I pour in all the gifts that I possibly can, and there are many. And I know that I am a powerful witness, so there's that part of it. The eyes that I have are is something. And
Mhm.
so it's really a container, so everyone comes in with, they're working on whatever they want to work on, right? So again, that shape shifting ability, some are working on, bringing their creations into the world. Some are really focused more on their emotional health and what they're going through in their life, and making sure that they're returning to themselves and taking care of their emotions, having a space to be able to feel, like deeply, deeply feel. And others are, on a motherhood journey, maybe expecting a child, so it's different for each person. And I work with the whole every stage of womanhood, so everybody's in a different place. And then of course, I'm very open, so I share everything I possibly can that I know about life. The teachings, I have a lot, so I share all that when it presents itself, that it would be a time that someone would maybe that it would be helpful. And then of course, uh, if someone's feeling into something, I can offer, that psychic and spiritual the sight and the vision that I have into something, if somebody asks for that. So
Mhm.
the space is just open. There's no agenda. I don't say, hey, now we're doing this, or as you said, we're with this archetype and now we're with that
Mhm.
archetype. There's none of that. I mean, if somebody said, okay, I want to do this, or they see something for themselves, then wonderful. But it's really just an open container. And uh, that is ceremony, is to just show
Mhm.
up and see what happens.
Mhm.
Oftentimes there's so many times in this work that women come in and they think they're going to talk about one thing, and they're just in the space where they feel loved and held, and then they flow into something that really needed to come out, or into something that really wants to be created. Or so there's no telling in what the power, of space, sacred space, can become. So that's the journey into women. And I call out for that once per year, because I like to have the commitment for at least a year. So that's open until like early December. So there's still
Okay.
some time.
Awesome.
But by the
And
time you put this out, there'll be like a little bit of time. So if you
so
hear it, email.
that's right. If you're listening to this, jump on it. And if people want to learn more about you, oh, wait, I have well, your website. Can you
Yeah,
tell us real
yeah.
quick? Yeah.
Yeah, the website is www.thestorymedicine.com. And
Okay.
my Instagram is also the story medicine.
Excellent. And of course, I will put all that in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
Oh, story medicine. Thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. I just feel
Oh.
really inspired and fed. So I'm so grateful for your presence and your time.
What a pleasure. What a pleasure. Thank you so much again. Thank you.
And thanks to all of you, as always, for listening. I so appreciate you being here and wanting to listen in. And like I said at the beginning, if you have thoughts, share them with me. This is kind of a weird thing, we just put this out in the world, and it is truly delightful when I hear back from you all. So please always feel free to reach out. And of course, if you like the show, you can give it a favorable review. You can tell your friends about it. You can subscribe to it. You can do all those things. And until next time, take good care, and I will be with you again soon.